Be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, Will, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
Because
the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff.
Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood.
So join me on Jubes and Kerr weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
It's 9 p.m. I'm Patrick Christys. Hello and welcome to a brand new edition of Patrick Christys Tonight. Victory as the BBC pull a Hamas propaganda documentary. Cheers.
I'm the first Muslim to have halal Five Guys in the UK. Halal. The famous Harami burger is now halal. Five Guys time.
Is that multiculturalism? A famous burger chain goes fully halal in Birmingham. More unbelievable migrant madness in Britain, plus...
President Zelensky talked the United States of America into spending $350 billion to go into a war that basically couldn't be won.
And I'm prepared to consider committing British forces on the ground alongside others if there is a lasting peace agreement.
Are Trump and Starmer at war with each other? But it's time to meet the real stars of the show. My live studio audience, come on. All right, OK, thank you very much, everybody. Thank you. Well, all right. This is the first Friday night show with this wonderful live studio audience. I am bang up for it. And so on my wonderful panel here, we have got Stephen Wolfe, the Director for the Centre for Migration and Economic Prosperity, Barry Gardner, Labour MP, Labour stalwart. We've got JJ Anasobi, broadcaster extraordinaire and former Tory MP and GB News presenter as well, Miriam Kate. I'm really looking forward to what we've got on tonight. But you know what? I can't wait to go down the pub, actually. It would be really nice, wouldn't it? Really nice at some point. There he is, look at him. We're going to be hearing from our mate Adam Brooks. Look at him there, busy pulling pints in the pub. We're going to be hearing what the punters are saying on this Friday night. And I've also got a nice little message lined up from another GB News fan favourite. Shall we hear it?
Well, a big hello to Patrick's first ever studio audience. I can promise you that you're in very good hands. You're going to have a great debate.
Absolutely. We're going to be hearing from Nigel Farage's got a very special message from my wonderful audience here. But there is some big breaking news tonight that we are going to be covering as it develops. It appears that there has been another attack, this time in Berlin at the Holocaust Memorial site. So as we get updates on that, we will be bringing that to you. But right now, I think it's time for your bulletins.
Very good evening to you from the newsroom. The top story tonight, well, we start with that breaking news from Berlin, where police have now, we understand, arrested a suspect near the scene of that knife attack in the capital, near Berlin's Holocaust Memorial, which left several people wounded, including one man who is seriously injured. Officers haven't given any details at this stage of the suspect's identity or indeed his motive, but video shows emergency vehicles and heavily armed police at the scene of that memorial, which, of course, honours 6 million Jews murdered in the Holocaust. The area has been sealed off as forensic teams gathered their evidence and witnesses are being given trauma support. As Patrick mentioned at the top of the hour, we will, of course, keep across all the details coming to us from Berlin and bring you the very latest. Turning to the United States now, where Donald Trump has accused Emmanuel Macron and Keir Starmer of doing nothing to end the war in Ukraine. It comes ahead of their visits to the White House next week. However, Cabinet Minister Pat McFadden insists Britain is in a good position with Mr Trump, urging his government colleagues to focus on actions, not just what Donald Trump says. Well, speaking to Fox News earlier, the US president also said Volodymyr Zelensky has no cards in the peace talks. Take a listen.
Yeah, but they didn't do anything either. The war is going on. There no meetings with Russia, no nothing.
Right.
You know, they haven't done anything. And Macron's a friend of mine, and I've met with the prime minister, and you know, he's a very nice guy, but nobody's done anything. And I've been watching this go on for years, and I'm doing it for one reason. I hate the killing. I hate to see those young people killed. They're not Americans. They're Russians and Ukrainians. I hate to see the killing.
And also breaking tonight, the man who tried to kill author Salman Rushdie has been found guilty of attempted murder and assault. 27-year-old Hadi Matar now faces more than 30 years in prison for the 2022 attack in New York, where he stabbed Rushdie 15 times. Sir Salman did survive, but lost vision in one eye and has a paralysed hand. During the trial, he recalled thinking he'd been punched before realising he'd been stabbed in the neck and in the jaw. Here at home, the mastermind behind the murder of police officer Sharon Beshanevsky has been found dead in prison this morning, just months after finally being jailed. Piran Titakan spent nearly 2 decades on the run before his extradition from Pakistan last year and given a life sentence with a minimum of 40 years. The 76-year-old had a terminal illness and was receiving daily treatment, though officials say his death is not suspicious. PC Beshanevsky was shot when responding to an armed robbery in Bradford nearly 20 years ago. Reform UK's Deputy Leader Richard Tice has slammed Labour, claiming they failed to take immigration seriously and dismiss working-class voters. It comes after a letter seen by GBNews reveals Sir Keir Starmer told his ministers to admit his party ignored working people's concerns about immigration for too long. The Prime Minister also says politicians have become too scared to acknowledge that some migrants are genuine refugees, but others aren't. He also warns Labour must stop patronising voters and counter the rise of Reform UK's policies. He's also pledged to stand up for ordinary people who, he says, feel shut out and ignored by elites. And just before I hand you back to Patrick and the panel, 3 men convicted in connection with a vile grooming gang in West Yorkshire will have their sentences reviewed by the Court of Appeal. That's after an MP called them pathetically short. 47-year-old Ibra Hussain and brothers Imtaz and Fayaz Ahmed, aged 62 and 45, were sentenced last month to prison terms ranging from just 6.5 years to 9 years. The case involved the abuse of 2 teenage girls in the 1990s, and now, following public outcry, the Solicitor General has referred their sentences to the Court of Appeal for review. That's the news on GB News. I'll be back with you in an hour. Now, though, it's over to the very first, very special Patrick Christys tonight on Friday.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Fantastic. Hello and welcome along to the first ever Patrick Christys Tonight live audience show. Thank you very much for everybody who's turned up. But firstly, just to get us all warmed up, I want a bit of audience participation. What do you think of the BBC? Oh, no, OK, all right, well, hey. Look, people think that they might be a pro-Hamas propaganda channel just because of stuff like this.
Good morning. You all right? Have you ever wondered what you'd do if your world was destroyed?
So, the Beeb used a child narrator in Gaza, and it turned out that his dad was a minister for Hamas. You know, this Hamas. Yeah, shocking stuff, isn't it? Yeah, and now one of our immigration lawyers wants us to take Gazan refugees. Now, these are the same people cheering that you just saw there as coffins of dead Jewish babies went past. All right, OK, so let's get into this with the panel, and we're going to take a couple of questions from this wonderful audience tonight. The question really is, should Britain take any Palestinian refugees? I think I will start at the end here with you, Stephen, if that's all right. Where are you on this? Should we take Gazan refugees, do you think?
Look, let's start with this. I don't think anyone in this audience, when we look at the Gazan children and the women and children that have been brutalised across the bombs that have come along, would not see that they've been suffering. That they, too, have also lots of pain. And so our hearts go out to them and to their suffering and want to help them in any way that we can. But also, we must also recognise that our immigration system has been abused over the last 20 or 30 years. It's not been strong enough to control those people coming into this country that have potentially been criminals, knowledgeable to ourselves who have been terrorists and those who are abusing our own systems. So my view is this: perhaps we should be more sensible and allow some like the women and children to consider that, but have very strong vetting systems in place to ensure that the criminals are deported, are not allowed in, and that they also have a route back when this is over.
All right, now, I'm going to go to Joe in a second, so wherever you are, Joe, get yourself ready in a second. But, Barry, do you have a different view? I mean, what was your reaction when you saw that verdict from the immigration judge there, Hugo Benedict Norton-Taylor, who's now become a household name, of course, that we should be taking these people? A lot of people have reservations. Seemingly, a lot of people were cheering for Hamas.
Well, look, I actually agree with a lot of what Stephen just said. As far as the court case is concerned, I think we need to understand that this was it became a cause célèbre because it was supposed to be under the Ukrainian resettlement scheme, right? And how could a Gazan apply under the Ukrainian resettlement scheme? And what you've got to understand is what Home Office policy is, which says that if you're applying outside of the rules, and Miriam, I know, knows this from her time as an MP, then you have to apply under whatever rule most closely approximates to your case. And in this case, it was a family in a war zone. So this was not actually applying under the Ukrainian resettlement scheme. And what the court found was that actually what they were doing was they were making a family reunion claim for a British citizen because his family's house had been destroyed in Gaza, and the court found they were likely to be a victim of Hamas.
That's
so
the loophole.
I think it's important to understand the context in which all that happened.
That's the context of the abuse that I said. I think we should have a very clear distinction between those that we know are genuine and those who are abusing the system.
All right, let's get the views of Joe. So you're the first audience question tonight, so welcome, mate. Great to see you. So what would you like to ask?
Thank you very much, and good evening, everybody. I'm a simple man with a simple point. The Palestinian family they've been brought over under this Ukrainian family scheme. Now, I don't know when in the last 3 years, because it's 3 years, I think, this week, that the Ukrainian family scheme started. But if we want to bring Palestinians, Gazans, Albanians, whoever, we'll have to set up a scheme for those. We set up this scheme for Ukrainian people, and they're still at war. At least in Gaza and Israel, we're going through a bit of a ceasefire at the moment. OK,
all right, good point. Miriam, I'll get you on this, because I think people do have an understandable degree of fear that if we bring people in from Gaza, how can we realistically differentiate between Hamas supporters and not?
I don't think we can, and I think that's why we shouldn't take any refugees from Gaza. I mean, I completely agree with Stephen. all human life has equal value. We all feel absolute huge sympathy for ordinary people going through this conflict. But there's a reason why Israel built an enormous wall around Gaza, which was that hundreds and thousands of terrorists were coming across the border into Israel and killing Israelis week after week, week after week. Of course, not everyone in Gaza is a terrorist, but a lot of people are. People voted in Hamas, and people have celebrated the kind of atrocity that Hamas committed on October the 7th. Now, yes, of course, we need to find a solution for the people whose lives have been torn apart by war. But why have Egypt and all the other Arab states closed their borders to the whole of Gaza since the start of the war? Yes, we do have a responsibility to the world, but it doesn't follow that we need to take every single refugee into Britain, and I think the security risk is far, far too high.
All right, now, there was something that broke yesterday, which is that 15 Labour MPs, and by the way, there were more MPs, it wasn't just the Labour Party, but 15 Labour MPs wrote to Keir Starmer saying that they basically wanted to have more Gazan refugees or Palestinian refugees in Britain. Could I just ask, before we go to JJ on this, is it possible to get a little bit of a show of hands of people in this audience right now tonight about how many of you think we should take Palestinian refugees? So no one thinks we should take Palestinian refugees. Right, OK. JJ, where are you on this?
Well, if we're taking Ukrainian refugees, then we should take in Palestinian refugees. For me, it's that simple. I've been to Ukraine previously. I've also lived in the Middle East. In Ukraine, and you saw the video footage of it yourself when the war first started, black and brown students who were there and workers and people from the Far East who were there working were being thrown off the trains by Ukrainians. As far as I'm concerned, Ukrainian values are not married with British values. That's not how British people treat people. So if we're going to say, yes, we can take in some refugees, I think it should be a bit more universal. However, I would also add, having lived in the Middle East, the United Arab Emirates, Abu Dhabi, Fujairah, Dubai, they can build a huge, nice, luxurious camp within 2 months. Yeah. And they could temporarily house people because 75% of refugees actually end up staying in neighbouring countries. They don't need to come this far across.
There's so many on us who regard us as the right as being inhuman. Our point is that we do look at the rules and the laws and say we can take people in. But as Miriam said, and as you're saying, there are other countries that can do it, they can build, but at the same time, we have to make sure that those who are not allowed to come here, come here. And as far as I'm concerned, for the last 20 years, our immigration rules have been abused. That's what needs tightening up. Then we wouldn't have so much criticism.
Quickly, Barry, and I'll go to the Scotland.
Yeah, look, just to say that the point here is that international law says that if you have a and we created it, let's face it, Britain actually wrote the law that said after the Second World War, if you have a well-founded fear of persecution in your country of origin, then you are entitled to seek asylum and to be granted asylum.
That includes, Barry, that includes a Sri Lankan paedophile that we can't deport because he's gay and he says he faces persecution in Sri Lanka.
I'm sorry, you can deport people, and in fact, if you look, the government has just deported.
We had to pay him to go.
No. We have just deported a number of people who were criminals and who had no right to be here. Look, if people have no right to be here, they should be deported. That's clear.
Go on, if we've learned anything from the last few months, it's that not all cultures are the same. And I think that's really important. Of course, Ukraine is not the same as Britain, but it is part of Western Christian civilization that's built on a particular type of values. They are different to values in Palestine and the Middle East. If we've learned anything from the last few months, that's what we should be thinking about.
All right, my man on the front row here, go on.
I was just hearing the conversation, and this country has always had a reputation of human rights. Operation Kinder is a great example. This country has taken in refugees, but the refugees we've taken in, they've been vetted properly, they've been looked after. What's going on now is just a complete flood. It's just anyone come on in, and we're not even checking if they are genuine, if they've come from war-torn countries, you know. Where's the checks?
Do you feel less safe as a result? Is that coming from there for you? What is it for you?
From in the area where I've been but the area where I've stayed in the last couple of years, where I've met my partner. There has been a drastic change in 5 years. Just in 5 years, there's been a drastic change in the way of life there and within the demographic of that area. And it's got more and more unsafe. We don't let our daughter out. I mean, my partner's agoraphobic anyway, but that's part of my question later on. But we're scared to just let our daughter,
well, you
daughter out
shouldn't
down the
feel
road.
like that. So I'm going to take 2 points on this. Stephen, I'm going to start with you. Do you think he's got a right to feel like that? Do you think a lot of people feel like that? And then I'll come to you, Rory.
I don't think he has a right to feel that way in this country. He shouldn't be feeling that way in this country. But I know it's a fact. I know it from my home in Manchester when I go up there and I see it as well. And I know that one of the points that we've talked about, and we disagree perhaps a little bit with Barry, is that when we look at the General Medical Council, who looked at the Egyptian doctor that cleverly wanted to deport from this country because of the tweet she said about those people in Hamas, almost supporting them. That's the type of point that this gentleman is talking about. And that's why I say we have to be crucially clear in this country. Get rid of those that we don't need and keep those that we should have who are decent and honourable.
Barry, do you think if Keir Starmer allows a situation where we do have now quite a few Palestinian refugees coming in, that could be game over for it?
Look, let's be clear. This family that we're talking about from that court case is a one-off, and it was a human rights Article 8 admission. It had nothing to do with the resettlement scheme from Ukraine. So, no, it's not. No, I'm sorry, it's not. Even when they applied, they said they were not applying under the Ukrainian settlement scheme. They were using that form because that is what the Home Office told them to do. OK? So let's get that clear. I think we could make common cause on this panel by saying that the Refugee Convention, written in 1951 by us here in the UK, is actually not up to date.
Yeah,
and what we need to do, and this needs an international settlement, what we need to do is we need to relook at that convention so that we separate out the people who are asylum seekers, who have a well-founded fear of persecution, and that we have a system in-country, safe and legal routes, and we separate those from the people who are economic migrants.
Right, we're going to put a pin in that one there, because at 10 p.m, what we've done is we've compiled a list of some of what, from my view anyway, has been the most bonkers week, and this is really saying something, in Britain's immigration cause. Some of the stories that have come out this week, so we're going to be having a look at that. That's about people who've come to Britain in no small part illegally, or people who've committed crimes, people who we can't deport. So we're going to pause this now until 10 p.m, but coming up, 3 million Brits are sitting on benefits now without even bothering to look for work. They don't even have to look for a job. They're told they don't have to look for a job. So we are going to be going down to the pub with Adam Brooks to tell us what his punters have to say on the shocking state of benefits in Britain, and given the fact that it's 9:20 in a pub on a Friday night, I, for one, am absolutely bricking it about what they might say. But then we're going to let my audience... Not as much as the lawyers, yeah. Anyway, yeah, my audience and their panel have their say next. Thank you very much, everyone. Good stuff.
I'm Michael Portillo. This is GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In the GB newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
Britain's Newsroom, weekday mornings from 9:30.
It's very emotional. It's designed to shock. What do you want people to take away from that advert?
I think, very sadly, a lot of people don't realise the violence and death that's prevalent in the dairy industry. For a cow to produce milk, she needs to be made pregnant, and then for humans to have that milk, the calves are snatched away. So that goes on for around 5 years. The cows are made pregnant every year. terrible diseases occur because they are producing 10 times more milk than is natural. And then they are killed. The calves that are taken away, if they're male calves, are shot. And for the female calves, just like their mums, they're going to go through the same thing.
We've got Kelly Seaton here, who appears to have a cow nudging you, Kelly, behind you. That cow looks quite content with you.
The industry has worked incredibly hard. We have an excellent resource in that we can use semen, so actually the amount of bull calves that are born is a lot less than what it used to be. We're working really hard to ensure that every calf goes down the right route. So actually shooting bull calves isn't a practice that takes place any longer.
We can be kind, we should be kind.
And I'm kind to my kids by giving them cow's milk, which is full of vitamins A, magnesium, zinc, B12, calcium, vitamin D. This is stuff that children need to grow, isn't it, Kelly? And I think what my problem is, Ben, is that your commercial is all about emotion. It's manipulating. It's not facts. You're not laying out facts about the dairy industry.
GB News, the People's Channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Headliners on GB News 11 p.m. every night. It's got 3 top comedians going through the next day's newspapers so you don't have to read them, which is great.
That's a good point. He's lying. I mean, maybe he's not lying.
That's Headliners every night from 11 p.m. and 5 a.m. as well on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Yes, hello and welcome back to Patrick Christys tonight on GB News. We're going to be hearing a bit more from our wonderful live studio audience in just a couple of minutes' time. But now, shocking new figures this week revealed that 3 million Brits are sitting on benefits with no obligation whatsoever to look for work. I mean, that is double in just 3 years' time. It's doubled. Remarkable stuff, that. Before I go to the panel, before I go to my audience, let's go down the pub with Adam Brooks. Yes, absolutely. Well, Adam, what are you saying about all of this stuff then? The people here have come to hear you. What are your punters saying? Go on, mate.
Look, I've spoke to a few of the customers tonight, and the reoccurring theme is that it's just too easy to choose a life of benefits. You know, they're mindful that people need it. It should be a safety net, but that it's being abused, and it's a life choice for many people. A lot of anger, actually. Some of these here are, you know, are tradesmen and work all sorts of jobs. Some of them work 2 jobs, and they're being clobbered for tax in this country. You know, we're one of the highest, I think, in Europe, maybe even in the world for tax. And some say, you know, is it worth working anymore? And they can see why these people just don't want to work, and they want to take the money, sit at home and watch daytime TV.
Yeah, brilliant stuff, Adam. I mean, absolutely spot on. I mean, this is the thing. So many people that are there in your pub right now, like you just said, are working 2 jobs, they're trying to make ends meet, etc. And let's be honest with you, the price of a pint is going up by the day, isn't it? What do you want to see done about it, Adam? Should we be trying to make these people go out and look for work? How do you want to do it?
Oh, look, of course. I think that it needs to be tightened. We've got a lot of abuse of our benefit system, you know, not only our immigration system, but our benefit system in this country. And hard-working people have just had enough now of paying their taxes and seeing other people have an easy life, you know, and in some cases, we can see that they shouldn't even be in this country, a lot of them, you know.
Look, thank you very, very much. That is the wonderful Adam Brooks there. Can we get a round of applause to the studio audience for this main man here? Look at that. What a guy. What a guy. All right, brilliant. So, look, I'll just whiz myself back round to my panel here, and then we're going to go and take a couple of questions from the audience. Well, 3.1 million people languishing on benefits, no obligation to work, JJ. What do we do about that?
I'm not sure what we do about it, to be honest, mate, because I feel like I grew up in a working-class household, working-class council estate. It used to be a case of, with my parents, you work and you're rewarded with money, and that's, you work hard. You've got to do 2 jobs to pay. That's what you've got to do. people who were on benefits, they were shamed. You'd be embarrassed to have to go out and say, I've not worked, I'm on the UB40, you know what I mean? Whereas these days, it seems like the shame has gone. As a society, we no longer have the shame. It's a case of, yeah, I can't work, I've got a bad back, I'm having a tough day this week, I can't go in, I need to have a mental health day. We've gone too soft and we've made it too easy for people to be able to claim benefits.
Have we been taken for a ride, Miriam?
Yes, but I think it's more complicated than that, because if you look at the rise in people not having to work and claiming benefits, it's almost all amongst the 16 to 35s. There's a slight rise in the other generations since COVID, but the vast majority of the rise is 16 to 35s. The vast majority of it is mental health, and it's much more severe amongst men than women. I think there's been a 40% increase in young men not in education and employment and training since the pandemic, just 7% in girls. So there's something very specific going on with young men whose participation in the workforce is rapidly falling, and because of mental health. Now, you can argue some of them are making it up, some of them are taking for a ride. I'm sure that's true. Yeah. But there is also something very seriously wrong with young men.
Yeah, there is. And I mean, look, whilst I do, I mean, I'll nail my colours to the mast here. I think so many people are on the take, and I think that there's a huge problem with laziness. I think some of that maybe comes from a lack of national pride. If you're taught to hate the country and the society that you live in, then maybe you're less inclined to want to go out and work and pay your way. I think maybe we're too generous in benefits, but at the same time, I have done a lot of stuff with, you know, suicide. I think is the single biggest killer of men under 40.
Yeah, and it's tripled.
So something is going
and
on.
Also, we have the highest rates of family breakdown in the Western world, well, in Europe anyway. There's a huge link between family breakdown and particularly young men's mental health in young adulthood.
Let's go to the audience. Gavin, is it? Gavin, good luck. OK, but what would you like? Would you want to stand up for us and say what you want to say? Oh, you can sit down then. Sorry, my bad. Come on. Do the hokey cokey while you're there.
Right, my question is, you want to shake up the welfare state, right? But could have whatever the cost is, and yes, I know there are a few people that want to fiddle, but that's only a small majority of people. There are genuine people out there that wants to work, but they can't because they really have got disability that won't allow them to work at the end of the day. Right? So you're going to be punishing them as well. Yeah, you know, you want to spend money on the people in Ukraine. So can you tell me the justification in spending money for the people in Ukraine, yet you don't want to help the people that need it, your citizens of this country at the end of the day?
OK. Oh, all right. Well, I'll throw that to you then, Barry. There's kind of a couple of points rolled into one there.
Sure. Look, I think you make a hugely important point about the long-term sick, because actually the people who are told you don't need to come back and have a further assessment, you don't need to look for work, are precisely the people that you're talking about, the people who have long-term disability, long-term chronic illness. And actually, this is what's happened over the past 15 years. We've said to them, no, don't worry, you don't need to do anything. This government has changed that. And actually, I was down at the benefits office just before Christmas to look at...
We pay you. We pay you.
Go on with you. Go on with you. To look at the new system that they were putting in place. God, you... and what was really impressive about that was that a lot of the people who were on long-term disability actually are afraid to apply for jobs that they think they might be able to do, because if they find that they can't cope with the job, if then they don't, they're then sanctioned and they lose their benefits, and it all goes back to the beginning. So we've changed that system now so that people can actually be supported, because I think everybody has an obligation to work if they can, but it's also a great opportunity that many people who are long-term sick really want to take advantage of, because it improves their own economic situation.
What about Ukraine? I'd like them to pledge that we stop giving them £3 billion a year.
Absolutely. Well, I'll tell you on the Ukraine point that you made, OK? And it's as simple as this. If we see Putin being able to get away with what he's doing in Ukraine, who's next? And then what does it cost us in defending Europe and our allies in NATO?
OK, all right. Well, look, in the next section, we're actually going to be talking a little bit more about the Ukraine and the Trump issue and all of that. So we'll save that. Great question there, mate. Thank you very much for that. Can I just do another little show of hands before we go to Stephen on this? How many people in this room think that the age bracket, what Miriam was saying there, about 16 to 25, was 16 to 30?
Yeah.
16 to 30 are lazy? OK, let's get a show of hands there. So, OK, people are hovering in the middle. So a mixed bag. So, obviously, we're taking a very broad brush approach to that, but fair enough. So, more people than not thought they were lazy. Do you agree with that, Stephen?
Yeah, I do, unfortunately. And like JJ and I are both from working-class families, single parents. I started on the left. Eventually, I've moved to the right, so I hope that he'll get the sense. As well. But most normal people are actually fed up with paying...
That's people like you, Stephen.
Yeah, people like me are fed up with, and hard-working taxpayers having to pay a lot of money out every time and struggle to pay their own bills when people are gaming the system. But let's not throw out, as Miriam has said, the baby with the bathwater. We do know, as this gentleman has said, that there are people who are sick and ill and injured about that. When, in my research as the Centre for Migration, we find out that a huge number of those people who are granted the right to remain here end up being moved out of the Home Office payment system into local authorities and then end up on benefits as well. So that's a large number of the group that you're talking about in there. And if we dealt with that, then that would also be an issue about tightening up our borders and tightening up the control here and tightening up that. And then we move on to the final point, which is, as we've said here, start paying for our own people first. And I'm sorry, Barry, we're going to disagree with this. No more money to Ukraine. Wow. Put to our own people first. Well, that's all that matters to me.
That is the perfect point to end it, because that is exactly what we're talking about next. It's a hot topic at the moment, of course, and Ukraine's got so much wrapped up in it, hasn't it? Trump, Starmer, everything, the EU, all of that stuff. And we are going to get stuck right into that next. But hey, look, we were talking about benefits there, weren't we? Talking about giving things away for free. Well, you know what time it is. We are giving you the chance to win the latest Great British giveaway. Yes, absolutely. You can win not one, no, but two amazing prize bundles. They're all there to be won. Here's the details that you need.
We're doubling your chances to win in our latest Great British giveaway, with two fabulous prize bundles up for grabs. There's 2 lots of a totally tax-free £10,000 in cash. You'll also receive a brand new iPhone 16, along with £500 in shopping vouchers to spend at your favourite store. And the best news is, 2 lucky winners are going to win. For another chance to win, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus 1 standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus 1 standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. Call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge, or post your name and number to GB11 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrants must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 7th of March. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
OK, all right. Well, I think the audience seems to be having a decent time so far. I'm sure my panellists are as well. Coming up, well, President Trump is embroiled in an almighty war of words with Zelensky this week, but our Prime Minister, right here, appears to have backed the Ukrainian leader. So could that special relationship be in jeopardy? I know the audience is raring to go on this. Where's Keir Starmer? Would you put troops on the ground in Ukraine? Don't miss it. It's going to kick off next.
I hope it doesn't rain.
Don't worry about it.
It'll spoil our holiday.
Relax, we're totally covered.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations forecast.
Storm Coral will be affecting eastern parts of the Mediterranean, bringing in a cold plume, so below average temperatures. These are set to affect Athens, parts of Santorini, so feeling cold here. But as we move our way further west, milder, yes, but some unsettled weather on the cards. Some rain affecting Nice, Barcelona, also parts of Portugal. But Madeira and Tenerife staying largely dry, and that remains the way into next week. Also the best of the temperatures, and temperatures improving across Santorini.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations forecast.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
Sunday with Michael Portillo from 11, only on GB News.
Last week, Christys auction house in New York announced that it was holding an auction devoted solely to art created with artificial intelligence. Nearly 6,000 people have signed an open letter calling on Christys to cancel the sale over concerns that the technology behind such AI art pieces exploits human artists and can potentially violate their copyright. And there are broader ethical questions at play too. Where do the boundaries of art lie? With me now is James Thomas from Martin Stanmore Auctions. James, very good to see you indeed. I don't quite see how you can have art without a human being. I mean, art to me is something which is produced by a human being which expresses something about the human condition. To me, that cannot be produced by a machine. How do you react to that?
I agree completely with what you're saying there. I think for us at Martin Stanmore, we're very much about sort of getting behind artists in a traditional method.
I sometimes say to my team, you know, I've got a piece to camera to do now. Find out what AI would say that I would say. And, of course, what it comes up with. It doesn't have enough knowledge about what I've just experienced, so it's not a perfect example. But it certainly gets the tone. And, therefore, I mean, I'm completely replaceable. I mean, you know, the next series that I do... Say that. Well, thank you so much. The next series I do of Railway Judges, you could perfectly well have an avatar and AI producing words that sound like mine.
It is very scary. It is very scary. And I think for collectors and investors, it's a bit scary for them too. I mean, a lot of our collectors at Martin Stanmore that we speak to, they very much prefer things that come from traditional artists, not just sort of blue chip works, but also up and coming artists.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back, everybody. This is the first ever Patrick Christys Not Audience show, so thank you very much, everybody who's got their tickets, who's come down tonight, and I'm loving the panel so far as well. But this is the topic of the moment, really. It's the topic of the moment. So President Trump has sent lefty liberals into a bit of a tailspin this week after he launched a blistering attack on the Ukrainian leader, Volodymyr Zelensky. Shall we have a little listen, remind ourselves of what he said?
President Zelensky talked the United States of America into spending $350 billion to go into a war that basically couldn't be won.
Yeah, and he doubled down, didn't he? He labelled Zelensky a dictator in a post on social media. But, well, in a growing sign that there could be a bit of a trouble ahead for us in our special relationship with the Prime Minister, he appeared to back Zelensky, didn't he? And some breaking news this evening, which I am now finding out for the very first time, so this is always fun, isn't it? Donald Trump has slammed Sir Keir Starmer and Emmanuel Macron for doing nothing to stop the war in Ukraine. So I'll read that to you one more time. This has just come through to us clearly outside in the newsroom. Donald Trump has slammed Keir Starmer and Emmanuel Macron for, in his words, doing nothing to stop the war in Ukraine. So before I go to my wonderful audience here, Miriam, your views on this. Is Trump right that Zelensky's a dictator, that Starmer and Emmanuel Macron have done nothing to stop the war?
Well, Trump is brilliant at saying things that really, really inflame the left. A lot of things he says at the time, people say that's utterly ridiculous, he's lying. He said that coronavirus came from China, for example. You know, he pulled out of the Iran nuclear deal that was widely decried. And yet he has this habit of being found out to be right in the years ahead. And I do think he has a point. I don't think Zelensky's a dictator. But on the other hand, we have had far too much consensus about what's going on in Ukraine. Europe, America have given Ukraine enough money to stay in the war and stay fighting, but nowhere near enough to win. So I think we are guilty of prolonging it. Now, Trump's rhetoric seems very inflammatory, but his history is that he knows what he's doing when it comes to foreign policy.
JJ, you're of the view that I think that we should stop funding Ukraine.
Yep. Trump is correct. He's not correct on lots of things, but he's very correct on this. If you go to the mayor of Kyiv, Klitschko, the former boxer, he himself was the one who first said that Zelensky is no better than Putin. He's basically a dictator. That's what he's saying. And what I find most egregious is the fact that Western media have painted a picture and done perfect PR for Zelensky from day one. The guy is the president. Why is he walking around doing TV shows in army fatigues as if he's the army general, as if he's out on the front line? He's not. It's all been perfect PR. Going on Vogue magazine, going around to our parliament and doing speeches where he quotes Churchill. He knows exactly what he's been doing, and the West have played into that. Trump is the only person who's going to end this war.
Well, let's take a question on this, and I'll come to Barry off the back of it. So, Rob, you've got the microphone in front of you there. What's your question or point on this then, mate?
Right, my feelings on this, Patrick, is, first of all, Donald Trump deserves a damn sight more respect of the British government, of the French government, of the Ukrainian government than he's been given. He's been bad-mouthed constantly, getting right down from Starmer through to David Lammy, through to numerous people. Does everybody forget the fact that without the assistance of America, we're nothing? We have this delusion that Britain is a major power. The only thing that deters Russia from a major attack is the American presence. What respect does America get from our country and from the people surrounded in Europe? He's warned us, if we couldn't respond to the warning a week ago given by his deputy, that the immigration was causing massive problems. Nobody responded. Why? Because the Labour government believe they're above America. It's a disgrace.
All right, so I'll go to you on Barry, then Labour MP. Do you think that we've disrespected Trump, that your government has disrespected Trump?
Look, let's be clear. The person who is a dictator in all of this is Vladimir Putin. He is a dictator. No question about that. I suspect, sir, that you have a military background.
Correct.
Yeah. And you will have a proud tradition in whichever regiment or part of the armed forces that you served, which harks back to the time when we stood up against a bully. It was a bit late. He'd already invaded Czechoslovakia, and he had to invade Poland before we got off our backside and did something about it. But your regiment will be proud of the way in which we did stand up to a bully, not for us immediately, but because we knew that if we didn't, ultimately we would be paying the price as well, because bullies don't know where to stop. Vladimir Putin is a bully, and he needs to be stopped. Now, I don't know why the American president is saying that Britain and France should stop the war. What he should be saying is Vladimir Putin should stop the war.
Put more money into defending the country. That's what it should be.
And for the past 15 years, they haven't got their 2%. Right. We've said that we'll take it up to 2.5
and beyond. You can blame everything on the Conservatives. We agree with that. But what about you guys?
All I'm saying is we were the ones who, at the time, said we're going to put it to 2.5%, and we're now talking about putting it up still further from that.
You're always talking about doing things, but you never do it except take things away.
Well, you can abuse us all you like, but actually we were saying it before the election, and since the election we've done it.
But because that hasn't happened, that's why we can't win the war in Ukraine. And I think the comparison with the Second World War is wrong. I mean, of course we were wrong to appease, but we weren't actually ready to go to war in 1938, so it was important to delay it, to rearm. We are not in a position to win this war. It's not winnable. We need to have some realpolitik. You can't win it, so we shouldn't be funding it.
You've also got to look at, you've also got to look at the fact in the German election debates that happened over the last few days, Germans recognised that the whole amount of NATO's military money that we put in amounts to the same as the whole GDP of Russia.
OK.
So we're already putting more than they actually earn as a nation. Why are we saying we put more in it? What are we afraid of?
All right, well, look, guys, I'm going to pause it there because there's a topic that I really want to get stuck into next. And this is the fast food chain Five Guys, all right? So they've ditched bacon, hot dogs, booze. In fact, they've gone full halal in Birmingham. Is this really multiculturalism? My audience and our superstar panel are going to have their say on that next, so stay tuned.
Good evening. Here's your latest GB News weather forecast from the Met Office. Looking ahead to the weekend, and Saturday's going to be the driest, brightest day for many before some heavy rain and strong winds arrive on Sunday. But before all this, well, we have had a couple of frontal systems push through today. Most of the rain associated with that is now clearing away, but in the southeast, a frontal wave means we're going to see more heavy, at times persistent rain as we go through overnight and into tomorrow. Elsewhere, it's a drier story. Some showers though towards the northwest of the UK. Some clear skies here, elsewhere quite cloudy at times, and with that temperatures not dropping a huge amount, perhaps a little bit lower than some recent nights, but most places holding up in mid to high single figures. So not an especially chilly start to the day tomorrow, but it is going to be quite a wet one, particularly across parts of East Anglia and Kent. Otherwise largely dry across much of England and Wales, though fairly cloudy. A greater chance of some sunshine early on across parts of Northern Ireland and Scotland, but western areas will have a scattering of showers, and some of these could be a little bit on the heavy side, particularly as we go into the afternoon. I am expecting a few more showers to develop. Now, through much of the morning across England and Wales, away from the southeast, it is going to be generally dry, but a few more showers across parts of Wales, southwest England are likely to pep up as we go into the afternoon, and there's a good chance that some of these could be quite heavy and spread a bit further eastwards, whilst the rain in the southeast clears away. Temperatures down a degree or so compared to today, but with some brighter skies, lighter winds, if anything, it'll feel a bit more pleasant. Not so pleasant on Sunday. We have some heavy rain and strong winds pushing in from the west. Rainfall totals could really build up, particularly across parts of South Wales. Do stay up to date with our warnings, as there's a chance that we may need to escalate them in some places. And we have strong winds with coastal gales, perhaps gusts in excess of 60 to 70 miles per hour for some. So a really unsettled day ahead. Bye-bye.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
No,
because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, Will, please bring us up to date. Or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. Now, the popular fast food chain Five Guys has sparked outrage because they've removed alcohol, hot dogs, bacon from the menu. This is in Birmingham. Basically, they've gone full halal. But is it any wonder when you consider what the demographics of the local area are? According to the ONS data, there we go, 62.7%, I believe, of residents are Asian or Asian British, which might indicate why they are so keen to do the halal order. Well, we decided to order, I think, a non-halal Five Guys. Can we bring it in, please? Billy, our floor manager, is coming in with an... So, well, go on, Billy. Whilst we do this. Stephen, do you think this is a sign of multiculturalism failing or working, or what is it?
I've got this. I couldn't help it. Five Guys flipped the script, it's true. Now serving halal a change for the crew. Burgers for all, no beef to spare. That's the end of Burgerland. I don't care.
Don't clap for that. Don't clap for that rubbish. Flipping up. Look, Patrick,
come on. African Birmingham, Sonic Force.
Birmingham, that's my neck of the woods.
Go on.
It is a mostly Asian area, this particular branch. And it makes sense. If you've got people going into your restaurant and you're not selling bacon, because let's say that five Guys was selling bacon previously. People going in there and ordering mostly...
sell booze, though, can't you? I mean, they just don't have to order it.
No, but we can still sell. But what's the point in them having stock? This is the problem. If the majority of their customers aren't asking for it, then why keep the stock? It's not a problem. There's other Five Guys restaurants in Birmingham you can go to where they serve bacon and they serve booze. This one particularly...
Five Guys. It's actually not bad, is it?
Only considering it's probably been sitting around the corner for the last half an hour, it's all right. We've got a question here from... Am I right in saying Louise? Hello. Go on, what's your point?
My question is, in Dubai, you can actually go into a hotel at breakfast and they'll have a separate area with the bacon and the sausages. So why can we not have a separate area in the Five Guys? Why do we have to drive to the other side of the city, which might not be where you're spending your night out? And if you want alcohol, there could be a separate area to have your alcohol.
I lived in Dubai and worked there. I can answer that for you. The reason they do that is because they make all their money from people who are not Muslim. That's why. So it's completely different, unfortunately. No, this Five Guys place is making the majority of their money from Muslim customers. So they're catering business-wise. It makes business sense. In Dubai, the majority of people who go there are not Muslim.
Why do it's not being inclusive, is it, to ban people who want bacon and pork and beer?
You're not banning them.
No, they don't stock it anymore.
I was actually going to ask if you've got any...
It's not there, is it?
But you're not banning them.
Mustard, isn't it?
Well, it is banned, Barry, because it's not there, is it?
What I don't understand, though, is, you know, this area of Birmingham has had a very large Muslim population for a long time. And it used to be the case that people, Muslim people or Jewish people in other areas, just don't choose the foods that they can't eat for religious purposes. Is this actually a rise of extremism and pandering to extremists rather than just a reflection of an area that has been majority Muslim for a very long time?
You've got an extremist burger in front of you there, Barry.
Listen, I remember Ed Miliband with the bacon. There's no way you're getting me on camera with that. I take my hat off to you, Miriam. No. Can I just say, actually, my understanding is that most of the meat that we buy in our supermarkets is halal.
No.
It is.
I'm joking.
I'm not joking. Because actually, it gets to the point that if they're going to have to do it for a significant percentage of the population, that's what they buy in. So actually, we've probably all been eating halal for quite some time. But we don't make a complaint about Jewish restaurants.
No, but
why should we make a complaint?
You know what you get if you go to a Jewish restaurant. You know what you're getting, Barry. You go to a Five Guys. You know you expect it.
But isn't there a bigger problem with Five Guys? Isn't there a bigger problem? They're talking about this, but they're talking about Five Guys. Isn't that now too woke?
Oh, there you go.
Shouldn't it be five women?
Well, all right. Now I am being. This is being shouted at me because I have to read a letter from Five Guys lawyers, right? So. Our burgers use halal-certified British beef that is prepared following specific practices as required to become halal-certified, whilst maintaining humane and ethical standards without compromising on the animal welfare, according to the UK and EU legislation. In order for these stores to be fully halal-certified, we will not offer bacon, hot dogs or alcohol. In future, we may look to introduce halal-certified hot dogs. Right, there we go. I, for one, cannot wait for a turkey bacon hot dog. Right, when we come back, we're going to be talking all about Britain's migration scandal. Stay tuned. Oh, right.
Good evening. Here's your latest GB News weather forecast from the Met Office. Looking ahead to the weekend, and Saturday's going to be the driest, brightest day for many before some heavy rain and strong winds arrive on Sunday. But before all this, well, we have had a couple of frontal systems push through today. Most of the rain associated with that is now clearing away, but in the southeast, a frontal wave means we're going to see more heavy, at times persistent rain as we go through overnight and into tomorrow. Elsewhere, it's a drier story. Some showers showers, though, towards the northwest of the UK. Some clear skies here, elsewhere quite cloudy at times, and with that, temperatures not dropping a huge amount, perhaps a little bit lower than some recent nights, but most places holding up in mid to high single figures. So not an especially chilly start to the day tomorrow, but it is going to be quite a wet one, particularly across parts of East Anglia and Kent. Otherwise, largely dry across much of England and Wales, though fairly cloudy. A greater chance of some sunshine early on across parts of Northern Ireland and Scotland, but western areas will have a scattering of showers, and some of these could be a little bit on the heavy side, particularly as we go into the afternoon. I am expecting a few more showers to develop. Now, through much of the morning across England and Wales, away from the southeast, it is going to be generally dry, but a few more showers across parts of Wales, southwest England are likely to pep up as we go into the afternoon, and there's a good chance that some of these could be quite heavy and spread a bit further eastwards, whilst the rain in the southeast clears away. Temperatures down a degree or so compared to today, but with some brighter skies, lighter winds, if anything, it'll feel a bit more pleasant. Not so pleasant on Sunday. We have some heavy rain and strong winds pushing in from the west. Rainfall totals could really build up, particularly across parts of South Wales. Do stay up to date with our warnings, as there's a chance that we may need to escalate them in some places. And we have strong winds with coastal gales, perhaps gusts in excess of 60 to 70 miles per hour for some. So a really unsettled day ahead. Bye-bye.
Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Want to be one of 2 lucky Great British giveaway winners? That's right, you could win one of 2 prize bundles, which includes a brand new iPhone 16, £500 in shopping vouchers to spend in your favourite store, and an incredible £10,000 in tax-free cash to spend however you like. What would you spend that cash on? For another chance to win, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus 1 standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus 1 standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. Call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge, or post your name and number to GB11 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 7th of March. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get the book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Headliners on GB News 11 p.m. every night. It's got 3 top comedians going through the next day's newspapers so you don't have to read them, which is great.
That's a good point. He's lying. I mean, maybe he's not lying.
That's Headliners every night from 11 p.m. and 5 a.m. as well on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, though.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Friday night audience spectacular. If you missed the first hour, where have you been? It's like question time, but with none of that woke nonsense. Anyway, we've got loads on this hour.
A lot of the posts on social media have been racist. I think when you're saying that refugee and asylum-seeking men should be vetted to make sure that they're not paedophiles, I think that's racist.
This has been the worst week yet, in my view, for illegal migrant madness. I'm going to rattle off a few cases for you, and... It's been a very bad week to be a member of the pro-Palestine brigade, and...
President Zelensky talked the United States of America into spending $350 billion to go into a war that basically couldn't be won.
A president who would line up with neo-Nazis and the Ku Klux Klan.
Of course, I wouldn't want Donald Trump round for dinner.
So, Starmer is off to meet Trump next week. Might be a bit awkward, I think. Also tonight...
I spent the best part of a decade as an economist at the Bank of England. I know the importance of financial and economic stability.
Before the last election, I worked as a solicitor in Manchester city centre, and I would travel in to Manchester every day from what is now my constituency.
Well, I think we might be on resignation or sacking watch, aren't we, with those? Could Labour's cabinet be in tatters? Barry might be in for a job here. Fantastic. But who will go first? And... Well, all right. So, look, hey, trans doctors can now change their identity and wipe their medical negligence records. I think that's a little bit weird. All of that, though, all of that heavy stuff, it just makes you want to go back down the pub, doesn't it? Yes, that's right. We're going to be live at the Three Colts with fan favourite GB News superstar Adam Brooks. Look at that, what a mighty fine man he is. And, of course, on my panel this evening, we are joined by former Tory MP Miriam Cates. We've got the Director of the Centre for Migration and Economic Prosperity, Stephen Wolfe. We've got broadcaster extraordinaire JJ Alisobi and Labour MP, Labour stalwart and tremendously good sport tonight, I must say, as well, Barry Gardner. Oh, and we have got a very special message for you from a very good friend of mine.
Well, a big hello to Patrick's first ever studio audience. I can promise you that you're in very good hands. You're going to have a great debate.
We'll be hearing a little bit more from Nigel Farage later on. And it's the return of Greatest Britain Union Jackass as well, everybody. So, yes, you will get your vote on who's been the Greatest Britain Union Jackass of the week. But all of that comes after your headlines.
Patrick, thank you, and good evening to you. The top story tonight at 10. Well, police have arrested a suspect near the scene of a knife attack at Berlin's Holocaust Memorial, which left several people wounded, including one man who is seriously injured. Officers at this stage haven't given any detail on the suspect's identity or motive. Video, though, shows emergency vehicles and heavily armed officers at the memorial, which honours 6 million Jews murdered in the Holocaust. The area was sealed off as forensic teams gathered evidence and witnesses were given trauma support. Donald Trump says Volodymyr Zelensky and Vladimir Putin need to get together and that he thinks a peace deal could be done. He's accused Emmanuel Macron, though, and Sir Keir Starmer of doing nothing to end the war in Ukraine ahead of their White House visits next week. But Cabinet Minister Pat McFadden insists Britain is in a good position with Mr Trump, urging his government colleagues to focus on actions, not just words. Meanwhile, in his nightly address, President Zelensky says Europe must and can do more to secure peace, but insists it must be done with America. Hamas has been accused of a sick and abhorrent act after failing to return the right body of an Israeli hostage. Israel says tests confirm that 2 young hostages, Kfir and Ariel Bibas, were killed by their captors, along with Oded Lifshitz, while Hamas claims they died in Israeli airstrikes. The Foreign Secretary David Lammy, though, says the failure to return their mother's body is vile and insists it must be handed back. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has vowed Hamas will pay the full price for what he calls a cruel and malicious violation of the ceasefire. Hamas, though, denies any wrongdoing and says any mix-up was due to Israeli bombing as the fragile truce nears the end of its first phase. Meanwhile, the BBC has pulled a Gaza documentary from the iPlayer after discovering its 13-year-old narrator is the son of a Hamas official. The broadcaster says it wasn't informed of the family connection before airing the programme and is now conducting further due diligence. It comes after Culture Secretary Lisa Nandy and high-profile media figures urged the BBC to investigate how the film was made. The programme was removed today, with the BBC saying it won't return while the review takes place. Pope Francis is being treated for double pneumonia but remains stable, according to his doctors. Dr Sergio Alfieri confirmed the pontiff is not in danger of death, but stressed that his recovery is ongoing. The Vatican Hospital is not releasing images of the Pope during treatment due to respect for his privacy, they say. The Pope will remain in hospital at least through the next week, with his condition changing daily, but his doctors have reassured the public, saying he's not at any immediate risk. And Apple is taking the unprecedented step of removing its strongest data security feature from UK devices after the government demanded access to data. The change means iCloud storage will no longer be encrypted, making personal files accessible to Apple and law enforcement with a warrant. Apple, though, says it's gravely disappointed and warns creating a backdoor for governments could be exploited by bad actors. Privacy campaigners have also called it an unprecedented attack, while US politicians warn it could threaten intelligence sharing with the UK. Those are the latest headlines from the newsroom for now. One more update from me at 11 o'clock. Now, though, let's get straight back to Patrick.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Welcome back, everybody. Yes, it's fantastic to have this wonderful live studio audience in with me here. Yes, there we go. Lovely. All right. Well, look, as I'm sure you are all regular viewers and listeners to this show, as indeed all of my panel are as well, you all know that I do quite like to rattle off some illegal migration nonsense every now and again. It's one of the things I do. So this week, for me, has been one of the worst weeks for it. So we've got Albanian criminal's deportation halted over his son's dislike for foreign chicken nuggets. That's the thing that happened. Next, we've got the Jamaican drug dealer avoiding deportation. He pledged, you got this, to only smoke cannabis and not sell it. All right? Do we all believe him, do we? Do we think this is going to happen, though? Oh, yeah. If you can't trust a Jamaican drug dealer, you can't trust anyone. We've got a Zimbabwean paedophile as well allowed to stay in the UK because he would face hostility back home. So, I think maybe he should face a bit of hostility back home, personally. We've got a Ghanaian who's won the rights to stay in Britain after staging a marriage that she didn't attend. So there we go. I mean, that's someone who's been recently married. I can say it probably would have saved her a few quid that way. But we've got a Slovakian. A Slovakian has been jailed over a shovel attack, OK, but has been allowed to stay in Britain because he's claimed to be rehabilitated now. So that's good. Just don't get him to do any garden renovation, presumably, and we'll all be absolutely fine. We know the story we spoke about earlier on. A court has now decided to give Gazans the right, in some cases, to claim asylum here in Britain. We've also got another one. A failed asylum seeker can stay in the UK because she joined a terrorist organisation in Nigeria. And the reason behind this, and the reason why this is so clever, or at least her lawyer was, is that that terrorist organisation is not a prescribed terrorist organisation here in Britain. So we can't kick her out, but it would mean, because she's a terrorist, that she can't go back home. So remarkable, really, that, isn't it? Finally, one to round us off, a Pakistani paedophile has escaped deportation because it would, quote, harm his children. So as far as I can see, it means that, you know, we're almost all right to, he's all right to harm other children in this country, but, you know, we have to look after his children as well. I think that this is the kind of story that gets spoken about a heck of a lot down the pub. And so I thought, why not bring up Adam Brooks? There he is, GB News fan favourite. He'll be with us shortly. There he is. Good lad. It's 3 Colts. Adam is a fan favourite here. Yeah, you can hear it. Brilliant. So, look, Adam, you and I, every Wednesday on the sofa, we set the world to rights, don't we? But, I mean, what are you hearing down the pub about this stuff? Bear in mind, we are live on national television.
Look, I've spoken to a lot of people in the pub, and again, it's anger and it's bewilderment that we've got judges, not just UK, but foreign judges, making decisions to keep some very dangerous people here, and even people that are pretending to be children. You know, we've seen cases where these adults have been put in schools amongst our children, and as a father myself of young kids, you know, I just want a safe society. And I found Big Marcus, who wants to say a few words as well. So I said this to Marcus about, you know, these ridiculous cases where judges are making these decisions to keep these people here. Marcus, how does that make you feel?
Well, as you know, Adam, I've worked in security my whole life, and I just can't believe the scumbags I've come across. We certainly don't need any more coming into this country. I mean, the problem is with these woke judges, they keep overturning and doing nonsense and letting them stay in this country. What about the human rights of the women and the children who are getting raped and getting attacked by these people? Yeah. They're worrying about the human rights of these immigrants, and it's mad. The country's going to pot, mate.
Well said. I mean, that's pretty clear to me, Patrick, and that mirrors what most people I know say. You know, we've got enough scumbags or criminals as it is. We don't need to import any more.
well, Adam, thank you very, very much, and thank you as well, especially to Big Marcus, who is
look at the arms, Patrick.
is indeed big. Oh, brilliant. All right, OK, well done. Right, I'm going to whiz this over to the panel. I will just make a very quick apology, Ofcom related, for the use of the word scumbags there, although, you know, in some cases, maybe it is justified. Right, so before I go to my audience for a couple of questions on this, where do we start? Stephen, you are the director of the Centre for Migration and Economic Prosperity, Stephen. You know, when we rattle off these cases here now, how does it make you feel? What should we do about this?
Look, everyone believes that we should have fair trials and appeals for everybody. This goes beyond common sense. Most people look at this and actually feel that the system is failing them. It's a ridiculousness. It's a laugh. We've got Big Marcus there, who I'd actually like to see on the front line of taking those people to be deported. They would actually run away if he was there. But the real point about this is it's about the system that we've had. And I'm afraid it's not just the Labour Party that are continuing the failing system. The Conservative parties were part of this as well. We should be leaving the European Court of Human Rights. We should be changing our common law to ensure that Article 8 and all the ridiculous elements that allow this to happen are removed from our system. And I say this as a lawyer. I am not criticising the judges. I am criticising the system. I'm criticising the law that allows this to happen.
Well, people don't like this. I criticise the judges a little bit, I'm afraid, but, you know...
You can do. I'm not going to get this far.
No, that's all right. But before we get some views more from the left, I have got an audience point and question here. What's your name, sir, and would you like to make it? Go on, what is it?
Hello, Anthony. Thanks, Patrick. I'd like to ask the panel if they believe that judges are interpreting our laws the way they were intended.
I'll go. There's a man after my own heart. There we go. OK. Well, JJ, I'll start with you and then we'll go to Barry. Do you think these judges are interpreting the law the way it was intended? I.e., was it intended, do you think, when we signed up to these human rights laws, etc., that an Albanian child who doesn't like foreign chicken nuggets should you know, they should all be allowed to stay in Britain? He's an Albanian criminal, this guy.
I think we can go through a million cases and we're going to find a handful that make a mockery of the law. That's going to happen regardless. Any Western civilization is going to have the same issue. They are our legal system in this country is actually pretty good. It is. Some judges make mistakes, but they are going off precedents and they're going off laws that predate any of us. So generally speaking, I think they're doing a good job. But of course, there's instances like this where I'm sure these judges would see, and the case of, oh, you can't deport this paedophile because it's going to be a danger for the paedophile's children. Yeah. But I'm sure the judge wants to make a decision, but he's unable to make it because he has to follow the law.
Let's see what we... Just again, this show of hands, all right, before we go to Barry and then Miriam on this. Do you think that we have immigration judges in this country who... Is there a political bias there? I.e., do you think that we have too many people who may be off the left or open border fanatics in the judiciary? Is that the general... That's the overwhelming view of this audience, anyway. I mean, Barry, you know, this is, I put it to you, this is the view of the average man and woman on the street, because we see things like...
You're calling these fine, upstanding citizens average? Patrick, I'm shocked.
Wow.
How could you?
You know the love I feel for these people. My point is, Barry, people like you get out your echo check, all right, and meet these fine people. No, look, a Zimbabwean paedophile can stay in the UK because he might face hostility back in Zimbabwe. Good, he should face a bit of persecution, shouldn't he?
Look, you asked the question about the judges. Yeah. It's a very long-established rule in this country that politicians should not criticise judges. But I want to be straight with Anthony, because he asked the question in a very balanced way. And I think that what you have is you have laws which were created without any future foolproofing, OK? So what we need to do, and we talked about this earlier in the 1951 Convention and how it needs updating, and we need to, you know, it was that law was written before most people could simply hop on a plane.
So you want Keir Starmer to make this a priority to change it, because what's he doing now?
Look, but what we are talking about is a very, very few cases. And the interesting thing is, before it became illegal to come here in a small boat across the channel as an asylum seeker, and you're automatically ruled out, no matter what had happened to you before, which in international law is not right. If you look at the people who came and went before our courts, 2/3 of those people were found to have a well-founded fear of asylum.
We had a
well-founded fear.
We had a Sudanese bloke.
I'm not saying
with a
that
receding hairline, a full beard, crow's feet, and wrinkles.
And do you know what the
Home Office said? This guy's 25, and the judge decided he was under 16.
That figure is not entirely correct, because the research we did from 2000 is 1.2 million people have made asylum applications. 60% at first instance were rejected. That number you're using is of the number of those that appealed later. So that's a much smaller number.
What do you mean? I've got to bring Miriam in.
Well, hang on. Can I just respond to what you said? Because you said that the courts had said that. They didn't. What the court actually said is that he should be considered as a child. There's lots of things we don't know about this guy. I don't know whether his mental capacity or whatever.
One of the things that the last government did try and do, and I'm no supporter of many of the things the last government did. In fact, I was one of only 12 Conservative MPs to rebel on the Rwanda bill because it didn't exclude the ECHR. But one of the good things that they did try to do was bring in mandatory age testing, which all other European countries do. We're the only one that doesn't, and your government has scrapped that. But I do agree the ECHR is the problem. It was written, as the gentleman said, in the 1940s to try to prevent states from torturing their own citizens, as the Nazis did, and now it has been interpreted as this living convention to mean that eating untasty chicken nuggets is now considered torture. So clearly the ECHR is a problem. Yes, we have to leave it, but our Human Rights Act under the Blair government has embedded that in our law, which means that whatever you think about the judges, they probably are actually interpreting it correctly, or at least that's an interpretation. So perhaps the judges are lefty liberals, but we also have a problem with this living convention that we have to get out of, because it clearly isn't serving our interests.
OK, right, so we've done enough hand showing. I want to hear, by way of noise now, if people in this audience think we should leave the ECHR. And hang on a minute, just for the sake of balance here. Does anybody think we should stay in the ECHR?
I can shout louder than anybody here. I was brought up in Glasgow.
The problem is Barry's got a mic on, right? So what we're going to hear from now is about 40 people in Northumbria who've just gone deaf as a result of this. Who's here on the panel? Are you out of the ECHR?
I've been arguing leaving the ECHR since around 2012.
You're out, Miriam, you made that.
And can I just... I think we should thank Charles Hymas and Sam Ashworth-Hayes at The Telegraph, because they are the ones who've dug all these out in the last couple of weeks. They've read through all the transcripts. They are the ones that have brought these to light.
Absolutely. And you were both in the ECHR quite clearly, as where you are. JJ,
look, I'm in, but wasn't it Cameron who refused to give prisoners the vote despite Europe saying you have to give it to them? So I think there comes to the point when Britain has to do what's best for Britain, and if someone's a paedophile and they weren't born here, they've got to be sent home. There should be no discussion on that.
Just one last very quick one. Do you think it's really against someone's human rights to do dental checks or a wrist X-ray when they come across the channel so we can find out definitively how old they are, Barry?
No, I don't.
Again, this is common sense. Why don't we just do it? Why don't we just do it? Anyway, right, OK. Well, we've got loads more coming your way. I've got a couple of good things for you, actually. We're going to be hearing from our mate Nigel Farage, so we'll be hearing from him in the States, and we're going to be talking a little bit about whether or not Someone's going to have to get rid of a couple of cabinet ministers. Barry's saying there's no vacancies at the minute, Barry, but, you know, give it time, mate, give it time. Right, but before all of that, yes, it's right, isn't it? It's the Great British Giveaway, and here's how you can win some amazing prizes.
We're doubling your chances to win in our latest Great British Giveaway, with 2 fabulous prize bundles up for grabs. There's 2 lots of a totally tax-free £10,000 in cash. You'll also receive a brand new iPhone 16, along with £500 in shopping vouchers to spend at your favourite store. And the best news is 2 lucky winners are going to win. For another chance to win, text cash to 63232. 1 entry costs £2 plus 1 standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus 1 standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. Call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge, or post your name and number to GB11 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrants must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 7th of March. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
All right, coming up, everybody, we are going to be joined by Reform UK leader Nigel Farage, and then we're going to ask, can his party actually win the next election? He said they could. My audience and my wonderful superstar panel will have their say, and that's next.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, Will, please bring us up to date. Or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
An advert for clothing retailer Next has been banned after it's judged to feature an unhealthily thin model.
Well, the advert, which was a product listing for denim leggings on the retailer's website, was deemed irresponsible by the Advertising Standards Authority after a single viewer complained.
A single viewer, OK. In its defence, Next said the ad was created with a strong sense of responsibility to both consumers and society, and while admitting the model was slim, they added that she had a healthy and toned physique that aligned with the nature of its product, its leggings.
Well, is it irresponsible to feature slim models in adverts? Let's debate this now. We're joined by the showbiz broadcaster and body positivity advocate Danielle Broadbent and the journalist and broadcaster Emma Trimble. Danielle, let's start from you. Did the Advertising Standards Authority get this one right?
Absolutely. I mean, loads and loads of brands sell leggings and they don't need to feature a super slim model to sell their clothing and their leggings. Now, from my point of view, the ASA are not saying that this woman is unhealthy. They're saying the way she's being styled and the way she's posing looks unhealthy. And with such a trend going on at the moment with curvy plus-size models in the fashion weeks, the trends of weight loss pens and things that are going round, are we encouraging, when we see adverts like this, vulnerable young teenage girls who are quite vulnerable anyway with body image? Are we encouraging eating disorders?
I think the idea that society is somehow, holding up anorexia as a virtue is just an anachronism. This woman is healthy. She's being body shamed for being healthy. I think people really just need to, and I know this sounds harsh, but I think they just need to get over themselves. It's this kind of scrutiny that is actually leading to people being so fixated on the way that people look.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent? I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Patrick Christys tonight. This is the first audience show spectacular on a Friday night, the first of many. Make sure you get your tickets and join us here next time round. But, as promised, Nigel Farage has delivered a special message to my first studio audience from across the pond. Shall we take a look and a listen, shall we?
Well, a big hello to Patrick's first ever studio audience. I can promise you that you're in very good hands. You're going to have a great debate. I'm speaking to you from CPAC over here near Washington, D.C. And so many delegates and Elon Musk himself saying what has happened to free speech in Britain. And you know what? I think they've got a point. Plus, of course, you'll be debating the delightful Zara Sultana, who seems to somehow think that I'm the BNP, when actually I've done everything I can to fight the far right for over 25 years. Please have a great evening, and you know what, Patrick? One of these Fridays, I'll come and join you.
Oh, well, that's an offer I can't refuse, isn't it? Nigel Farage could be here one of these Fridays, so make sure that you're back for that. But, OK, two things to go out there. Firstly, free speech. Is it under threat in Britain? Because J.D. Vance is definitely, and he's gone on record saying this, definitely going to look Keir Starmer in the eyes and tell him, you've got a problem with free speech in Britain when he meets him next week. Is he right to do that, Stephen, for you?
Absolutely. I mean, I felt this for a long, long time. It's not just before the Labour Party, but actually also with the Conservative Party too. I think the idea of cancel culture is a stain on not only this nation's history, but it's also the nation that we are today. The fact that people can lose their jobs because they have views that differ to that of the establishment, or if they have a view about men and women, for example, which I think is one of J.D. Vance's most important aspects about it. So the idea is right. He's quite right to challenge Keir Starmer, but if he's really got one country that's really more serious than that, it's Germany. Germany, where you insult somebody, you can actually have a criminal offence about you. And that is a big, big issue. And we're losing this for some reason. I don't understand it. I don't understand where we suddenly went down this slippery slope.
The other thing, Miriam, and then we'll go over here this way, but the Zara Sultana post there, he's saying that basically it was very close to being incitement. I don't know if we've got a little picture of that post that she put out. They might be able to show everyone. I'm sure everyone knows what it is. Anyway, it was Nigel Farage's face with a big line through it, and it was a post like, Birmingham, be ready. And she then called him the BNP, or said he was like the BNP. There it is, there's that post. What do you make of what she's done there? Do you think she's putting him at risk?
Well, quite possibly. I mean, public figures are at risk now, sadly, whether you're on the left or the right. It is a fact of modern political life that even if you are fairly inoffensive or not extreme, you will be targeted. But I think, you know, I think we do have a problem with free speech. A lot of that is around fear. I think actually you can be a lot braver than many people think. But again, it all goes back to Blairite legislation, the Equality Act, the Human Rights Act, difficult terms to interpret like harass and harm that are in the eye of the beholder. And yes, it has got worse and worse over the years, but if we're going to sort this out, it does mean going back to those pieces of legislation, like the Equality Act, that have embedded these kind of anti-free speech ideas in our law. OK, now, I'm going to go to the audience on this. I can see a gentleman with a microphone on the front row in front of me here. So what would you like to say, sir?
So the question I have is, obviously, Reform are doing really well in the polls at the moment. They're in the late 20s. But in order to win the next election, which is, what, in 4 years, they're going to have to increase their vote share quite significantly. And I guess if you look at the electorate, there's a view from some quarters that Reform are perhaps maybe far right or racist. And what can they do? My question is, what can they do over the next 4 years to increase that vote share to get rid of that perception? Right. Well, Jojo, I'm going to come to you on this, because we've spoken about this issue previously on some of the shows. Where are you at when it comes to this idea that Reform are far right or racist, or people have that perception of them? Do you think that there's a chance they could win the next election?
I don't think there's a realistic chance of them winning the election, purely based on how our political system works. It's going to be Labour, it's going to be Tory. The best chance Reform have is to join up with the Tories. They're not going to get enough votes, unfortunately. If you look at the local council elections, there's all the hype about Reform Party, but when it comes to actually voting, there's just not enough support for it. And I don't know if that's a case of people think if I vote for Reform, it's going to be a wasted vote, because they're probably not going to get in, so they'll try someone else instead. But I just don't see it happening. In terms of them shedding this opinion, that I don't think actually most of the country think it. I think some leftists think that they are a racist party. There are far-right people in this country who support Reform, but that doesn't mean that Richard Tice and Nigel Farage are far-right. I know Tice pretty well. He hates it when I call him Dickie, so I call him Dickie especially because he really likes that.
If you call me that as well.
But yeah, unfortunately, Farage has tried to distance himself from Tommy Robinson's supporters. That's pretty much all he can do. OK. But we're not going to change. Unfortunately, there are far-right people who are going to support Reform.
We've got... I'm just going to say, I'll put this to you, Barry. The latest voting intention here, this is YouGov. This is 3 days ago anyway, so the one I've got in front of me here has got Labour, your party, on 25%. It's got Reform on 27%, the Conservatives on 21%. I think it might be on the screen now. Yes, it is. There we go. Good stuff. Barry, are you scared?
Let me answer the gentleman's question.
Go on.
I think any party could win the next election, because it's 4 years till the next election, and it's a matter for you, the voters, as to who you put your trust in. I'm extremely worried. I'm worried not about which party's up, which party's down. I'm worried that this weekend in Germany, the AfD, which is a neo-Nazi party, could actually come to power. I think we all should be worried about that. I'm worried that at the conference that Farage is at the moment, Steve Bannon gave what was clearly a Nazi salute. Now, with Elon Musk, people are trying to say that, well, it wasn't really a Nazi salute, but, well, it looked pretty much like it to me. But
you're shaking your head.
Bannon's salute, I don't think you can have much disagreement with what Bannon did. That was a clear signal to the far right. So I am concerned that the far right is actually becoming popular, not just in America, but actually in Europe as well.
OK, all right. I mean, I know... sorry, so we're not going to be able to go to you on this because we are out of time, I'm afraid. But I know a lot of people will say that, OK, well, look, the far right is one thing. But in terms of people being concerned about immigration, mass immigration, rapid demographic change, actually, if people on the left wanted to stop people of the right getting into power, they could have done something about that, actually, for the last few decades. And maybe that is a failure of some of the policies. But what I want to do is I'm going to invite everyone to just have a little look at what I'm about to play you now and see if you can guess what topic we're going to be talking about next, all right? So, here it is. Well, here at GB News, I might be the star presenter, but I always like to take a hands-on approach when it comes to hiring people. We need to make sure we don't get any duds, any fraudsters, any liars. Got an interview today with a lad who wants to be my producer at a job. I think he's here now. How are you, mate? All right?
Nice to meet you, mate.
Yeah, nice journey in?
The train's delayed, but it's fine.
Wow, Sadiq Khan's London, isn't it? Pop yourself down there, mate. Ooh. So, good stuff. Well, look, hey, I had a look at your CV.
Yeah.
All looks good. All looks good. A bit overqualified in some senses. We'll start with the fun stuff.
OK.
All right. So, extracurricular activities here. It just says astronaut. What's that all about?
Yeah, that was my gap year. I went to Mars.
Right. For the year?
Yeah, for the year, yeah.
Full year, was it?
10 months.
Right, it's like 6 months there, 6 months back, isn't it?
Oh, yeah, give or take, yeah.
Yeah. I suppose it depends how you go, really, isn't it? Yeah. And then just some stuff here, mate. So it says you spent 5 years working as a solicitor around the Manchester area and then the best part of a decade at the Bank of England. How old are you, Billy?
23.
Right, well, that all checks out good enough for me. So, there we go. I suppose the next question is, when can you start?
Now.
Now? You're hired. Well done.
Thank you, sir.
I forecast a perfect holiday in the sun.
Weather looking good then?
For sure, and no worries about our travel insurance.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations forecast.
Storm Coral will be affecting eastern parts of the Mediterranean, bringing in a cold plume, so below average temperatures. These are set to affect Athens, parts of Santorini, so feeling cold here. But as we move our way further west, milder, yes, but some unsettled weather on the cards. Some rain affecting Nice, Barcelona, also parts of Portugal. But Madeira and Tenerife staying largely dry, and that remains the way into next week. Also the best of the temperatures, and temperatures improving across Santorini.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations forecast.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
I'm really pleased to see this story. It's the news that bowel cancer screening, the age for that is going to be dropped from 60 to 50. And this is really, really important because bowel cancer is one of the biggest killers, and more people appear to be getting diagnosed with bowel cancer in their 50s. Not entirely clear why. And there was an inspirational woman called Deborah James who I actually met when I used to be the Shadow Health Secretary, and I remember meeting her when she had her cancer diagnosis and supporting her campaign, and she sadly passed away a couple of years ago, but it was a phenomenal campaign, and I think did inspire the nation. And this is so important. So people in their 50s are going to be sent these kits in the post. And I suppose my plea is just do not ignore these kits because you can deal with cancer if you catch it early enough.
Yeah.
So
I mean, this is not the most pleasant thing to do, and a lot of us aren't used to it and talking about it and whatever, but it's essential, obviously, to do.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. And the other reason I wanted to sort of flag this is, I mean, we can sometimes make ourselves sort of pretty miserable looking at the newspapers, but this is undoubtedly a good initiative that the government have done this and that campaigners have persuaded the government to do this. So, look, I just want to plea to everybody watching, if you get one of these kits, use it.
And, of course, I think it's really important within that to point out that this would not have helped Deborah because Deborah was 40 when she died. And what's really important when you see stories like this is to pay attention to what your body is telling you. And if you have symptoms that are weird, it is important to go to your doctor and to talk about them and to take the tests.
GB News, the People's Channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
We're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Now, the Business Secretary, Jonathan Reynolds, has become the latest government minister to be accused of fabricating their CV. So Mr Reynolds repeatedly described himself as a solicitor despite never actually qualifying. He previously stated on his LinkedIn page that he worked as a solicitor in Manchester from May 2009 to May 2010. However, he never actually qualified, quitting his training contract to run for Parliament in 2010. And things are about to get a bit worse for Mr Reynolds, actually, as the Solicitors Watchdog have said they will now investigate. We all know, of course, it does follow the Rachel Reeves saga, doesn't it? Which actually has been quite comical, but there is a serious point, because Rachel Reeves is in charge of the economy and Jonathan Reynolds is in charge of business. There we go. I'm going to go straight to a member of my wonderful audience. It's Big Steve. Big. What? Big Steve, what would you like to say?
Big. Yeah, it's just like the Labour liars. David Lammy once said that his mum relied on tax credits to raise him, even though they weren't introduced until he was 21. You know, and it's just lie after lie from every single one of them, even on the front bench.
Do you think Rachel Reeves and Reynolds have to go over this, or not?
Yeah. The whole lot. The whole Labour Party. All of them.
Well,
they're liars. Starmer, they're all liars.
OK, well...
They lied their way into power.
Well,
Wait. Did you vote... I mean, obviously, I'm assuming you didn't vote for Labour. I did, but I didn't vote for Labour because Rachel Reeves said she worked at Bank of England or because this other guy said he used to be a solicitor. I didn't know that. That's not why I voted for Labour, so I don't think it really matters.
No, but the lies are coming out after.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is most people did not know that this guy was claiming to be a solicitor. No one voted for this guy thinking, you know what, he was a solicitor. I'm going to have to vote for him for that reason. That's not it.
I think the point is, and it must be embarrassing for Barry to actually have to see his fellow colleagues go through this when he's worked on a manifesto that he believes in to improve Britain, and then suddenly find people along there that have said the same thing but actually been dishonest. Because I remember, if you remember, when a chap was the head of UKIP, Paul Nuttall.
Yes.
He was criticised for having his CV changed and saying that he'd got a degree when he didn't have a degree, when he played for Tranmere and he didn't play for Tranmere, and he forced him out. So if you're being fair, then those people should go. But I do think it's not fair to actually criticise all the MPs on the Labour Party for doing it. But I do think Barry's in a difficult position when he has to go and deal with these people who've got these issues.
It's made it very easy for people to chip away at Labour's credibility, Barry, has it not? What do you think? So now the Solicitors Regulatory Authority is going to investigate him. I know that Robert Jenrick has come out the traps today and openly now called for Reynolds to go. Do you think he has to shuffle off?
Look, I think that if he had put himself forward as a solicitor to give advice as a solicitor, then that would have been something that the authorities would have said absolutely
that's
wrong.
That's criminal.
That's a criminal offence, right? Yeah. If he was training as a solicitor and for convenience didn't say, when I was training as a solicitor, I did such and such, but just said, as a solicitor, I did such and such, I think that is a lesser offence. It's what you're putting yourself out as. Is it an exaggeration, or was it actually on a CV? Was it on something where...
Well, he's in Parliament saying it.
That's different. If it was the CV, and you, Steve, said it's CV, then you're applying for a role on the basis of that, and somebody is going to take that seriously and say, well, if you're not actually a solicitor, it's fraud. OK? But if it's just saying, oh, when I was a solicitor, or when I was, you know...
But he lied to Parliament.
He didn't... Yeah, look...
Go on, Miriam, what's your view on this? Go on, what's your view?
Yeah, I think there are many, many sides to this story. I think, in his defence, on some occasions, he absolutely clearly said, I was a trainee solicitor. Yeah. On other occasions, he said solicitor. No, that is true. Of course, it's wrong to embellish and lie on your CV. But I think we've also got, and I agree with Barry on this, we've also got to be realistic. From now on, there's going to be nobody ever in Parliament who doesn't have a digital footprint. Put your hand up if you would be happy for anybody, anywhere, any employer to see every single thing you've ever written on social media, on a WhatsApp, and stick it on the front page of the paper. Nobody. No, we are.
Because what we're actually saying, she worked at the Bank of England for the best part of a decade, and then it turned out she didn't work at the Bank of England for the best part of a decade.
What I'm saying is, if you dig hard enough into anybody's digital footprint, you are going to find something incriminating. I'm not defending these two specific people. I'm saying, do we want a culture where every time someone's elected, we go after them so hard for anything, regardless how big or small,
it's not a WhatsApp
in order to bring them down?
It's your CV. I mean, I don't know.
It's not the CV.
I'm talking about digital footprint.
It's not WhatsApp or CV.
But
Stand up in Parliament and saying it.
On the LinkedIn that Patrick read out, it said 2009-2010 trainee solicitor, and underneath it said solicitor. Now, why he's got both up, I don't know. That's stupid. But it's not that it doesn't say trainee solicitor. There you go. There it is.
Yeah, but then it says solicitor.
Yeah, and that's the daft thing to do.
What I would say about Rachel Reeves, though, is that for Labour, rightly or wrongly, one of the big question marks was over their credibility economically. And I know that people will laugh at that because the Tories weren't particularly great at it as well. But that was the big thing. And Rachel Reeves was stood up there saying, I used to work for the Bank of England as an economist for the best part of a decade. And that gave Labour's economic plans a huge amount of credibility. And it turns out, Barry, that's not true. She lied about that.
How many years was it?
About 5.5, and then she went to
six. It was 6.
Yeah, 4.5.
So, look, I would not... it is embellishment to say 6 is the best part of 10, right? But it is the majority of 10, right?
Why did she leave? It's not an upward move to go and move from that to HBOS. Anyone who works in the city will tell you that.
Well, that's a different matter, OK? If you're trying to nail somebody on the letter of it, and here, actually, I think Miriam's given a much better defence of my colleagues than I've been able to this evening.
because there's going to be a Thomas Chancellor going to.
Somewhere you're at the UB40 checking them out.
Listen, when I won Wimbledon, I said...
All right, sorry, guys, because we've got one more section to squeeze in. But look, coming up, it's the moment you've all been waiting for. It's the return of Greatest Britain, Union Jackass. My panel are going to give me their nominees, and then this wonderful audience in front of me here are going to decide. So you don't want to miss it. All right.
Good evening. Here's your latest GB News weather forecast from the Met Office. Looking ahead to the weekend, and Saturday's going to be the driest, brightest day for many before some heavy rain and strong winds arrive on Sunday. But before all this, well, we have had a couple of frontal systems push through today. Most of the rain associated with that is now clearing away, but in the southeast, a frontal wave means we're going to see more heavy, at times persistent rain as we go through overnight and into tomorrow. Elsewhere, it's a drier story. Some showers showers, though, towards the northwest of the UK. Some clear skies here, elsewhere quite cloudy at times, and with that, temperatures not dropping a huge amount, perhaps a little bit lower than some recent nights, but most places holding up in mid to high single figures. So not an especially chilly start to the day tomorrow, but it is going to be quite a wet one, particularly across parts of East Anglia and Kent. Otherwise, largely dry across much of England and Wales, though fairly cloudy. A greater chance of some sunshine early on across parts of Northern Ireland and Scotland, but western areas will have a scattering of showers, and some of these could be a little bit on the heavy side, particularly as we go into the afternoon. I am expecting a few more showers to develop. Now, through much of the morning across England and Wales, away from the southeast, it is going to be generally dry, but a few more showers across parts of Wales, southwest England are likely to pep up as we go into the afternoon, and there's a good chance that some of these could be quite heavy and spread a bit further eastwards, whilst the rain in the southeast clears away. Temperatures down a degree or so compared to today, but with some brighter skies, lighter winds, if anything, it'll feel a bit more pleasant. Not so pleasant on Sunday. We have some heavy rain and strong winds pushing in from the west. Rainfall totals could really build up, particularly across parts of South Wales. Do stay up to date with our warnings, as there's a chance that we may need to escalate them in some places. And we have strong winds with coastal gales, perhaps gusts in excess of 60 to 70 miles per hour for some. So a really unsettled day ahead. Bye-bye.
Final segment of the show, the best segment of the show, is making a glorious return. It's Greatest Britain Union Jackass. So, whose Greatest Britain am I going to first? I think it's Stephen's Greatest Britain. Who's your Greatest Britain?
Greatest Britain is to all the mums and dads who've had to look after their children this week at half-term because it is so difficult to keep them going, entertained, with the costs that are right.
That's terrible. They chose to have them.
So Stephen's Greatest Britain is British parents. Go on,
British parents.
Well, I sent my children to grandparents. I think that's the way you do it. I've nominated Catherine Birbalsingh, Britain's strictest head teacher, because she has proven that if you stand up for what you believe in, if you impose strong discipline, traditional values, you can create the best school. And I've just been at the art conference with 4,000 people from over 100 countries, and her name was mentioned from stage more than anyone else from across the world. OK, good one. Barry, who's your Greatest Britain, please?
James Bainbridge, who is the professor of retinopathy, because he's just injected a child who was born blind and is now able to see.
Gorgeous. Wow. It's the most popular so far, JJ.
There's no point going, is there? There's no point. I will go home. Well, it's King Charles, because he's opening his house, Highgrove, and letting people who need warmth or people who are lonely to go there and spend time free of charge. God save the King.
God save the King. Well, indeed. I tell you what, there's 4 good ones here. Well, it's not up to me now. I normally get to choose, so we'll go just by way of noise, I think.
Don't forget, Barry is from the Labour Party.
I'm smiling about it.
All right, so British, by way of... Please only cheer out for the one that you actually want. So, British parents.
What's autistic kids to look after?
Well done, 1-1. OK, there we go. For Catherine Birbalsingh, Britain's strictest head teacher, anyone? Oh, God. Good for you. OK, for Barry Gardner's suggestion... For what it's worth, then, JJ's suggestion of the King. Anyone? Anyone for the King?
Rubbish.
Well done, Barry Gardner, who... OK, I must say, you'd have got long odds on that at the start. One of the Greatest Britain with James Bond, a doctor who has basically cured blindness. So fantastic. There we go. You never know when you might need that. Right, OK, so Union Jackass time now, which is really the one we're all after, isn't it? Go on, who's your Union Jackass?
It's got to be Jonathan Reynolds for pretending he's a solicitor when he's not a solicitor. I'm sorry.
All right, good. So you are a lawyer, so you know one when you don't see one.
If I said that, I'd be disbarred.
Wow, OK. All right, go on then, Miriam.
I'm going for the General Medical Council, because it's been shown today that they erase the records of doctors when they change their gender, which means that patients can't even see whether their doctor is male or female, and any wrongdoing has also been erased, which I think is disgraceful.
Actually, you know what? Yeah, go on. I'm going to, because we've got a couple of minutes, I'm just going to dwell on this for a second, right? I think this is absolutely ridiculous. I think this is absolutely ridiculous. We've already had cases where people, and OK, this is a minority of trans people, don't get me wrong, but where people have changed their gender and therefore changed their name, and they've got a criminal record, and because they've got a different name, if they moved in next to you, you wouldn't be able to Google them, you wouldn't be able to find out, and so some of those things might be sex crimes, for example. That's been a problem. But now, with doctors, you wouldn't know them.
And if you want to request a female doctor, you've no idea whether you're getting one. Now, I think probably what's happened is, yet again, the Equality Act enables people who change their gender to have privacy, so you can't reveal whether someone's changed their gender. So that's probably what's gone wrong here. But nevertheless, it's no excuse. And it's a huge safety issue as well as one of dignity.
It's massive, and it's a problem. And you also, look, I would question, there's a case, I've spoken to some nurses from Darlington as well, female nurses from Darlington, who have got currently a bloke with, you know, everything intact, who's got a girlfriend, by the way, who pretends to be a woman or identifies as a woman in their changing room, and they have to change with him. I find that absolutely astonishing, absolutely astonishing. But anyway, Barry, who's your union jackass, please?
I'm not going to win this one, right?
It's the bloke in Darlington.
My one is the guy who said that Rachel Reeves might be responsible for the declining birth rate of the population because she made people feel miserable, and that was the declining birth rate. Really, that was the Alliance for Responsible Citizenship conference, and it was your very own Nigel Farage.
What's it? There you go.
Jackass of the week.
Wow, Barry, you were doing so well. You were doing so well.
I knew I wasn't going to win this one.
Go on, JJ, who's your union jackass?
Andrew Tate. He made some horrifically sexist, misogynistic comments about Ariana Grande, Beyond the Pale. And we're talking earlier about how young men are having mental health issues because they're looking up to people like Andrew Tate. He is no kind of role model.
OK, all right, strong stuff here. So, let's remind ourselves, again, by way of noise, who's going for Stephen's union jackass? Jonathan Reynolds. And we've obviously got Miriam as the General Medical Counsel for the Transsexuals. I think we know Barry's gone for Nigel Farage. JJ, Andrew Tate's JJ. Anyone for Andrew Tate? No.
Can I just point out, you gave Miriam a 10-minute part there to puff up her piece. I'm disgusted. I think it's disgusting. Blah, blah, blah. Yeah, now she wins.
I asked Phil, which I am now out of. So thank you very much, everybody. Look, wonderful panel. Well done, everyone. Really good. And well done, all of you. Thank you very much. Don't forget, I'm going to do this every single Friday, so get your tickets, be a part of it. It's the hottest ticket in town. We even give you some free booze as well, so what's not to like? Headliners next.
Despite the morning rain, it'll be a nice, warm, cosy day ahead. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good evening. Here's your latest GB News weather forecast from the Met Office. Looking ahead to the weekend, and Saturday's going to be the driest, brightest day for many before some heavy rain and strong winds arrive on Sunday. But before all this, well, we have had a couple of frontal systems push through today. Most of the rain associated with that is now clearing away, but in the southeast, a frontal wave means we're going to see more heavy, at times persistent rain as we go through overnight and into tomorrow. Elsewhere, it's a drier story. Some showers, though, towards the northwest of the UK. Some clear skies here, elsewhere quite cloudy at times, and with that, temperatures not dropping a huge amount, perhaps a little bit lower than some recent nights, but most places holding up in mid to high single figures. So not an especially chilly start to the day tomorrow, but it is going to be quite a wet one, particularly across parts of East Anglia and Kent. Otherwise, largely dry across much of England and Wales, though fairly cloudy. A greater chance of some sunshine early on across parts of Northern Ireland and Scotland, but western areas will have a scattering of showers, and some of these could be a little bit on the heavy side, particularly as we go into the afternoon. I am expecting a few more showers to develop. Now, through much of the morning across England and Wales, away from the southeast, it is going to be generally dry, but a few more showers across parts of Wales, southwest England are likely to pep up as we go into the afternoon, and there's a good chance that some of these could be quite heavy and spread a bit further eastwards, whilst the rain in the southeast clears away. Temperatures down a degree or so compared to today, but with some brighter skies, lighter winds, if anything, it'll feel a bit more pleasant. Not so pleasant on Sunday. We have some heavy rain and strong winds pushing in from the west. Rainfall totals could really build up, particularly across parts of South Wales. Do stay up to date with our warnings, as there's a chance that we may need to escalate them in some places. And we have strong winds with coastal gales, perhaps gusts in excess of 60 to 70 miles per hour for some. So a really unsettled day ahead. Bye-bye.
There will be a light breeze in the morning, leading to a warm front. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
We're giving you not one, but 2 chances to win this month, with 2 prize bundles that include an incredible £10,000 in tax-free cash. But that's not all. You'll also get a brand new iPhone 16 and a £500 shopping voucher to spend at your favourite store. So why not be extra lucky this month? For another chance to win, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus 1 standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus 1 standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. Call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB11 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 7th of March. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Britain's newsroom. Weekday morning.